Hi, guys. So, welcome back to yet another awesome interview slash follow up slash catch up session that I am doing with my lovely client, Annie. For those of you that have been following my journey and know that about a year ago, so in August, I had done an interview with Annie, and she had been working with me for about 6 months at that point. And I'm not going to go too much into detail. I will post a link to that interview, but she had worked with me for about 6 months at that point. When Annie came to me, she was completely bedridden and had been almost bedridden for maybe 6 or 7 years, had been struggling with her health with severe chronic illness. Came to me and we started working together with some of the phototherapy patches, and Annie did phenomenal. And in 6 months, pretty much had her life back, and she was doing all the stuff that she hadn't been able to do before. So we recorded that interview back in August of 2023 as a follow-up, 6 month follow-up from when she started working with me. But Annie had a great idea. She had sent me a message a couple months ago and said, I want to record a year follow-up. So roughly last summer to this summer is about a year. And I mean, we're going to talk about this, Annie. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So happy to have you on. I have always stayed in touch with Annie, and I'll, send her a quick message, and always just it's not that I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, but your trajectory and healing has been so exponential from the time you started doing better that I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to check in on her. So we'll go through some of the instances, but for now, let's get everyone caught up. Like I said, I'll put a link to that interview for you guys to see how she did in 6 months and exponentially got better just by using phototherapy patches. But so since then, Annie, when I reached out to you back then and we did the interview, you were doing great. You had started going on dates with your husband again.
Well,
You
yeah,
were
we were
getting ready for a grandbaby. I mean, there was so much going on. So fill us in what has happened since then.
um, digestion is still improving.
Mm-hmm.
Peripheral neuropathy is probably lagging, but
Okay.
I have peripheral neuropathy from the waist down,
Okay.
and that's the only one that's really.
Yes.
If I didn't have that, I'd be out conquering the world. Adrenal fatigue is improving. I'd say I'm at about 80%, digestion 90% better. I mean, so light years from where I was. Yeah, I'm definitely able to get out and do things. I do too much and then I crash.
Yes.
So I still have crashes.
Yeah. So if back in November, it was right around Thanksgiving time, and I was just thinking of Annie and just super thankful and how her journey had been so amazing. And so I sent Annie a message back in November of last year. So just about 6-8 months ago. And
Mhm.
Annie said, for the first time in maybe 7 years, you were making a feast and cooking for how many people?
Oh, I can't remember how many people, but I mean, eating Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
just eating a meal with family because my diet was so specialized.
Yes.
I'd have to bring my own things,
Yeah.
or if I prepared a meal, I'd have to have my own separate, you know, stuff. And so now I can go out to eat. I don't have to even look at the menu beforehand. There's always going to be something that I can have now, which
Right,
is
right,
totally, I mean, last year at this time was not possible.
right.
And
I
even
mean,
getting
it was
out I could not do that. Whereas now I can do it more and more consistently.
right. I was trying to find the message, but you know, she, I mean, when I had reached out, she said that she had been cooking. She hadn't been
Yep.
able to do this for so long,
Yep.
and it was just a dramatic change that you couldn't believe. You said you hadn't cooked in so many years, and you were
Oh,
making this big
absolutely.
feast.
No, I mean, I at one point was only able to eat three different foods.
Wow.
And I did that for 18 months and became emaciated. And that's how the neuropathy.
That kind of
re-
how it came in.
Oh boy, yeah. I was so malnourished. And that I was hospitalized in 2020
Yes.
at
And when I
86
quote
pounds. So that
Yeah.
was me at my worst, 2020,
Wow. 20,
bedridden, hospitalized, and then I improved a little bit over
yeah.
the 3 years
You had
until
a
we met.
feeding tube as well, right? At some
Had a
point.
feeding tube at one
Had a
point.
feeding tube. Yeah. And then you came to me, I want to say it was around 2020,
Late
2020.
2023.
Yeah, 2023 is when
Yeah.
you came to me and started working with me. And I mean, we made a few changes, but the majority of the stuff was using the patches, the
Hmm.
phototherapy patches.
Yep.
The other thing I remember, and when I post your previous interview 6 months out when you were like completely doing well, the other thing I remember is you had said you were going on date nights with your husband,
Yep.
and then you were going out to the hangar, kind of where he works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
then the
he
last
has an
thing,
airplane.
he has an airplane, yeah.
he
And then,
has a he has a toy.
yeah, right.
It's a
And
vintage 1947 Piper.
And I remember your
Yeah.
messages when you first started going out to the hangar. You're like, okay, I went and I was there for a few hours, and then I was nervous that I may have done too much. And so we
Yeah.
kind
Oh,
of like slowly made you, and then you were going all day. And then you took a trip too after that.
yeah. Well, we travel regularly in between our two homes, but
Okay.
generally a travel day would send me into, it was just so much packing and being in the car. And now it's, I not only do I pack my own things, but I help load the car, I help unload the car, I help put everything away when we get,
Yes.
and
And
sometimes
this,
and sometimes I still crash. I mean, I
of
can't say
course,
I'm quite 100% yet, but I'm light years where I was. Light
right.
years.
And at some point too, like from where you were and what you're able to do, it is so inspirational and so motivational for people who have chronic illness. I mean, you had the gamut of everything from heavy metals to adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Like I said, you had a G2 and you had the whole works, the gamut of everything. And to see you today leading a completely normal life, and you had tried every treatment. You yourself, when you came to me, were so well versed in this alternative kind of health and wellness arena, and still doing so much, but you weren't seeing any results.
Wasn't seeing any results. And the nice thing about the patches is that I was able to start to supplement and get magnesium in me, get boron, get some minerals because
Multi-minerals is, I think,
I
what I put you
was
on.
so
Yeah.
deficient in everything.
Right.
So it's almost like I think of the patches as building blocks,
Yes.
because with that foundation, I was able to implement other wellness
Yeah.
strategies that really, and each layer has kind of,
Because you were so sensitive to everything,
yeah.
and
And
so you
so
were
my
able to start.
sensitivities were
Yeah.
reduced. So then I could start supplementing, getting more balanced, and that helped my gut health. And then once my gut health improved and my absorption of supplements improved, I saw benefits. And then would try different things and
Right.
saw more and more benefits. So it was kind of a building block for me,
Right. And if
where
I
I
remember
keep the
correctly,
foundation going, but I'm still adding, I guess
you're
anybody who's
at,
been chronically ill, you're always looking,
absolutely.
to implement, even if you're healthy,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
like, that
Indeed.
search for wellness is
Yeah,
always
and
there.
longevity, which is what I focus on, is the longevity
Hmm.
portion. So, if I also recall correctly, when we recorded in August, and I remember kind of wishing you good luck because I think your son was gonna have, him and his wife were gonna have a baby. I
Yeah.
remember kind of wishing you luck, and now I have kept in touch with you since then and asked a lot. But fill everyone in for who's listening, how much you've done since then, since the baby was born, and now the baby is 6 months old.
I'm trying to, I mean, I'm definitely out of the house a lot more.
Yeah.
I
I
have,
remember you were there for the birth because you
I
sent me
was there for
pictures,
the birth.
which was amazing.
Yeah, I definitely, like, I met them just a few days ago. We ate lunch together. I had spicy tacos, and we
Wow.
met up at the pool. And so we did that. So I'm able to get out more and more and more.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, to me, everything, and I'm sure you can relate when you are
Mhm.
chronically ill, especially at my worst, when I was literally bedbound, feeding tube, only to eat a few foods. I mean, to now being able, I just fixed myself spicy jambalaya, which
Oh
I've
my
got in the fridge
gosh.
right behind me. That's going to
Wow.
be my dinner tonight. of course, I use things like grass-fed and finished beef, but
Of course. Right, right.
and
No,
I
but
put
still,
my
I mean, that's stuff you hadn't eaten in years.
yeah, I mean, so I definitely I'm eating a well-rounded diet now, wholesome
Yeah,
diet, and able to go out here and there.
yeah,
Still gluten-free and
yeah.
sugar-free and stuff like that. But
It's
um,
fantastic,
I
right?
mean,
Right.
that's remarkable to me. And to meet my little granddaughter at the pool, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
Because I
so
remember you were like, "Oh,
important.
I'm apprehensive. Will I be able to do anything?" And from at least our text messages and exchanges, you've been such a great help and been able to be there for, I think when the baby was born, you were there for quite a few days helping out. And then, beyond that too, you've just been able to
Well, I
be,
was there at the hospital,
yes.
and definitely visited quite a bit when she was
Yeah.
little. I don't know if that was a lot of help, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and that's fantastic. And then the one more thing, I will remind you at least again, like I said, I've constantly checked in on you. You sent me a message a few months ago and you said you drove for the very first time in a long time.
Yeah, I'm starting to drive very short distances because the neuropathy is still very, very severe.
Yes.
But I have pressure, and so I'm able to drive. But any more than 5 or 10 minutes
Okay.
is
Which
too
you hadn't driven, you
nerve
said
wracking for
in
me.
about 6 or 7 years since you
Yeah,
last drove.
yeah. So I'm driving a little bit. Like yesterday, I drove. Yesterday was probably my best day I've had in my healing journey. I drove to the grocery store, did a full grocery run. My legs did fine, and I was in the store. Plus, I had walked about 2 miles before I went to the grocery store. So then drove after a walk, then did a full grocery run, loaded, unloaded. Then I cooked my jambalaya. Then I cleaned my front porch,
Oh
which was
my, that's more than
brutal.
what I do
That
on
was
a
a lot
normal
of work.
day. I don't even
So
get to
did
walking
laundry.
2 miles yet.
So sometimes, and I bet you can relate to this, when I do have a good day or a burst of energy, I have this tendency that I want to do everything.
Right, right, of course.
And then, oftentimes I'll do that for a few days and then I'm like, oh, that was not
It's a
good.
little much. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was a little much.
Which I
And
think is
I have
normal for
to change
anyone
it.
at any age, regardless of a chronic illness.
Yeah.
If you do too much, it's exhausting. But
Yeah. So
so yeah, I remember you sending me that message about having driven in a long time.
yeah.
I was talking to in my group, was having some discussions with someone the other day because I put, check mark of like walk 20 minutes, strength training for 30 minutes, did a cold plunge. And the person responded saying that looks like it's a recipe for adrenal fatigue and failure. And I kind of responded and said, actually, these are the things that you can do even after you've had adrenal fatigue, complete adrenal failure. If you really work yourself to bring yourself back, kind of how you and I work together,
Yeah. It
you
takes a
are
while
able to
though.
do that. It's
It takes a
possible.
while
Yeah,
because even short walks for me would set me off and I would be
yeah,
in the bed, but it takes a while. I think strength training for me has been easier on my adrenals than walking. I
sure.
don't know if you can relate to that, but
Absolutely. It took me a long time. I had started
yeah,
walking much earlier on in my journey,
yeah,
but the strength training portion did not come back till about 2 years ago. And I
yeah.
had to, because you get inflammation. There's just so much muscle tear, wear and tear, and then you get I was getting inflamed when I did strength training. So that
Oh,
was
really?
really
See,
the,
I feel like I do better with the strength training as opposed to the walking.
oh, do you? Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was able
I
to start
do.
walking earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean,
Because
those
if I
those
overdo it
made
on the walking, then I can't sleep at night. And then I'm like, oh, if I don't sleep, I know my cortisol's too
are
high.
still high, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit from your husband's perspective, kind of what he says and feels, because what he saw and, God, he was so supportive to you, but 7 years was a long time. Is
Yeah.
he like my husband's still like blown away every time? Like, is he blown away that, wow, like you walk to
Yeah. I mean,
the
my
grocery store
husband,
and all this?
yeah, I'm very, very blessed because he is probably the most supportive person and he's never given up on me.
Sure.
No matter what treatment I wanted to do. And I've done some really
You did
hokey
a
stuff.
lot. Yeah. Yeah.
I've done a lot of stuff. He's never given up. He just said he knew in his heart that I would be healed. He's always known.
Yeah. And
So,
is he
and
now
I
like
can
blown
imagine
away
this
when he sees
time
you doing
next
all
year.
this?
Pardon me?
Is he now blown away when he sees you doing so much? Like, is he
Yeah,
just
and he's always saying, "Don't do too much. Don't do too much." Like, but sometimes it's really hard because, like I said, when you feel good, you tend to cross that line, and you don't really know where the line is
right,
sometimes.
right.
But and I guess gradually over time, that line gets further and further
Sure,
out.
sure.
So, but yeah, he's blown away sometimes, especially with the driving. That
Yeah,
really gets him. But I've just got a really
yeah.
good husband. He's a sweetheart.
Absolutely
Really
wonderful.
kind.
And it's
Yeah.
so important, when you're dealing with a chronic illness, and especially when you look normal on the outside, yet you can't do a thing. And in your case, you were completely bedridden. But when you can't do a thing, you appear
Yeah.
normal to people. It is a very hard concept for people to understand, let alone significant others, because they're just not used to seeing you like that.
Yeah. And oh, gosh, when I was 86 pounds, though, I would have a lot of comments. And that
Really.
was painful, very painful.
Yeah.
People did not mind telling me that I was too
Oh,
thin, too small.
that's so sad. But I
Yeah,
just
it was hard.
it's so tough, but look at you today. And when
Yep. Eat
before
my
I hit,
spicy jambalaya now.
I know. Well, before I even hit record, when you first came on, I was blown away because you literally look 10 to 15 years younger. And so what
Put
I'm
on
going to
weight,
do,
it fills out. When you
I
put on
mean,
weight, it fills out those
and
lines.
you've been patching, so you've been really increasing your GHK copper peptides, which
Mhm.
is the key to longevity, or the secret to longevity, which is in the patches. But I'm going to put obviously a link to your previous interview, and just for your sake, and just for, I mean, I don't remember because I didn't open it, but once I saw you, so just for comparison's sake, you'll be blown away how different you look back then. And I'm just talking a year ago. It was last
Oh,
August to now. So
gosh.
when I put the link to the interview, I think everyone will be able to see. But thank you for coming on. Your journey is
Thank you.
absolutely inspirational. You went from completely bedridden for 6 to 7 years, a peg, like a feeding tube, unable to. I mean, I remember your brain fog complaints, your sensitivity. You couldn't tolerate
Yeah, the
anything.
sensitivity was my numero uno.
Yeah, yeah.
That
And then
really,
you just went from there to 6 months, and
yeah.
now a year out since you and I worked together, and you are absolutely thriving. You said dancing, going on date nights, taking care of the
Mhm.
grandbaby,
Yeah.
cleaning the porch, all this stuff. So kudos to you. What a great testament in the story. So thank
Thank
you for coming
you.
on to do a follow-up, and I will continue texting you and checking in on you
Yeah, I can't wait to see
the way
where I am in another
where
year.
you end up
Another
next.
year, I'm hopefully like symptom free.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
completely.
would be
So,
amazing.
yes. Well, thank you so much, Annie, and we'll be in
Thank
touch.
you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.